Can we release trauma through movement, breath, and hypnotherapy? Yeah, let's talk about that. Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of The Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracle. So if you want to learn how to lower your resting heart rate, lower your blood pressure while improving your pump at the gym, stick around. We'll talk about that later in today's episode, or just go ahead, scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or simply head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. Not only will you get 15% off, but you'll also know you're in the right spot because you'll see a little note saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols. But with that being said, let's talk all things mental health. That's been a reoccurring theme here on the show. We are talking about neurodivergence last week with Todd Hagopian. This week, we're talking about trying to deal with some of the trauma that all of us have experienced over the years. And it might be big trauma in your life. It might be little trauma that is actually big trauma. You just don't realize it. How do we address that and actually tackle those issues versus just trying to repress them or self-medicate? That's something we've seen happen a lot, especially as we've seen more and more of these hard drugs hit the market. So let's discuss that. Joining us here on the show to discuss all that and more is Matan Cohen-Citron. Matan, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to today's chat. I know you're joining us from sunny Connecticut. Thank you, Internet, for giving us the opportunity to have today's conversation. But before we jump into talking about trauma and how you're going through and actually finding some successful results in terms of dealing with said trauma, talk to us a little bit about who you are. Give us kind of the overview. Who is Matan and what brought you to this world that you find yourself in today?
So when I was young, I served in the military. I'm still young, but when I was
Aren't we all?
18 to 21, I served in the military, and I found myself pretty much holding stress, holding trauma in the body, like it really, and trauma from childhood, trauma from other things that happen in life, and I traveled the world and I got introduced to yoga. I knew that I'm going to practice yoga, and it was a life changing practice for me. And I said, like, if something is affecting me so much, I'm going to do it every day. And 25 years later, I'm still practicing. If it's yoga, qigong, breath work, meditation, it's part of my daily practice. And I practiced different modalities over the years, and at some point I fell to hypnotherapy, and I realized that everything we do is hypnotherapy. We're just not aware of that. So the question is not what is hypnotherapy, is how to use hypnotherapy in order to improve our life. So it might mean letting go of trauma, letting go of anxiety, letting go of depression, letting go of limiting beliefs, and that's the kind of what I like to call the negative side. The positive side is what behaviors we want and beliefs we want to form that are going to really affect our lives positively.
Interesting. So I think to start out, before we start talking more specifically about what you're using hypnotherapy to help solve these trauma responses, let's first dispel some of the myths around hypnotherapy because there's lots of folks, they immediately hear hypnosis or hypnotherapy and the red flags go up, Matan. They think
Yes.
this sounds like voodoo. This sounds like snake oil. I don't trust it. What is fact versus fiction when it comes to hypnotherapy?
The basic is that our mind is open to change all the time. For example, if you're going to watch, open the news now for 2 hours or for 2 days, you're probably going to feel more down, more depressed, more anxious as a result, because that's what happens to us. We're getting ideas into our mind all the time. Now, the people think that there is mind control, that I can make a person cluck like a chicken or give give me their bank account or something like that. That's not really what I don't personally don't know how to do. That's not my specialty. So hypnotherapy, hypnosis, trance is a state that we're going to in and out all day long. And what a hypnotist does is utilize this trance in order to create a long lasting change in the unconscious mind. So when the belief change, the behavior change, because our behavior is a reflection of our belief.
How do you access that unconscious mind? You say we go through states of hypnosis on the daily, but I don't remember that happening. Or at least I don't notice it happening. So, like, what does that look like, and how are you able to tap into that?
You're in a state of trance. You're going in trance in and out all the time. When you open screen, when you exercise, when you have sex, when you listen to music, you go into that state. The question is like what we're doing in that state. We usually our unconscious is present all the time. Like I don't need to ask you to close your eyes or to take a pill or anything like that in order to access your unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind is there listening, observing everything. Like what we perceive is about 5% what we perceive it with our conscious mind. Unconsciously, we are aware of everything. So the real question, like what we do in a session is induce that state to a light state. We don't need a deeper state in order to change. And there are different approach of doing it. I really like to do it conversationally, which means I like to take my clients' resources and anchor their resources as the truth. Like I don't, as a practitioner, A, it doesn't work. B, I don't find it to be ethically to give a person suggestions that are not his suggestion. Like for
Mhm.
example, eat more greens or drink more water. They sounds really true and really nice, but if they're not coming from you, it's like
Right.
why bother trying to put them in?
So, how do you help tap into that hypnotic state? Like, what I'm not asking you to give away your state secrets, right? But
Mhm.
what are some of the tools that you're leveraging?
Questions. Questions are the best way. Questions, I think, are the best way to do. I'm starting asking
Interesting.
questions.
Yeah, tell
You
me
know,
more about that. I'm
it's
curious.
exactly like sales, by the way. I know that you're,
That's why I'm curious.
yeah, like there are a lot of equivalents of between sales and hypnotherapy. Like for example, with sales, you have to you have to build rapport with your client. You can't work with somebody that you don't have rapport with. So one thing is like I build rapport. Another thing that I do, I screen my clients. I don't work with anyone. Like I do a consultation before I see that this person mind and heart are in the right place. I need to feel connection in order to help a person change.
What does that mean, by the way? What do you mean by that, saying, their heart and mind in the right place?
Basically what the way I see my skills, I help a person change their behavior. So I find it ethically that who I work with and what he's going to do with his behavior. If he's going to use his behavior to hurt people, I'm not going to take them as a client. Very simple.
Gotcha. So it's more of how they're going to take your sessions and then, pardon the dramatics, but use them for good or for evil, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So when you're screening clients, what are some of the things you're looking for to uncover that? Because my gut would tell me, Matan, that an evil person isn't going to say, Matan, I just really want you to hypnotize me so I can be a leader
Yeah.
of men to do nefarious things. That doesn't seem,
Obviously.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a normal request.
Having a website and having Instagram and having this, people know me, and it's like it's not. I don't have many evil people reach out to me. I'll say it this way. It happens naturally that the right people who are really interested in deep change reaching out to me.
Where do you think evil comes from?
I think most of our behavior comes from childhood.
Where does that manifest though? Is evil inherent, or is it just a series of unfortunate events or terrible things that happen to good people? What are your thoughts there?
I think our mind at some point did some kind of math and say that in order for me to feel safe, I have to hurt another person.
All right, it's the holidays, which means we're all doing that annual dance, pretending that we love this time of year while secretly We're running on stress, sugar, and whatever's left of our sanity. You've got the office parties, the family gatherings, the flights, the long lines, the weird cookie that Aunt Carol made, and on top of that, the weather's colder, you're eating heavier, you're sleeping less, and your immune system is basically sending you texts saying like, hey buddy, I'm not okay. And let's be real, December has a way of exposing everything your body has already been struggling with. Low energy, amplified. Brain fog, doubled. Circulation, frozen like your car windshield. And don't even get me started on inflammation after you've had your fifth helping of just a little more at dinner. See, that's where Cardio Miracle comes in. It gives your body that one thing the holidays steal the most, nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is actually what helps the blood flow. It helps oxygen reach your cells, support your immune system, and helps your body bounce back from the stress, the sugar, the travel, the cold weather, all of it. And I've been drinking it every day, morning and night, because I don't have time to crash halfway through the month. And Cardio Miracle keeps me steady, clear-headed, energized, and able to actually enjoy the holidays instead of just survive them. So if you want to give yourself the gift of not feeling like you're worn out at Christmas, just go ahead and scan the QR code over my shoulder, click that little link in the show notes, or visit cardiomiracle.com/TBNS to grab yours. And by the way, you'll get 15% off at checkout. And now, let's get back to the show. How does that look though? How does that happen? Because I've had bad things happen to me, and I just don't feel compelled to then have those bad things happen to others. As a matter of fact, I find myself more often than not trying to not prevent, or at the very least educate and guide people from making the same silly mistakes I've made.
Yes, because probably in your upbringing, and the rest of your life, you get like you've been developed that identity of a good person who wants to help other people. Probably it has something to do with the family that you grew up with the environment, with the teachers you had, the example you got.
But if, let's say I grew up in a not great family,
Yeah.
where does that not greatness come from? And I guess that's the inherent question, because if it's just a matter of a series of bad things happening to good people that's then passed down from generation to generation, it sounds like that's a little sad. Versus, I guess the other approach is there, and this is coming from a more biblical perspective, is there true evil out there that is manifested in demons that then harm good people because that's what God says. And that's kind of where I was trying to dance around that question of where is evil coming from, because if it is simply bad things happening to just normal or good people that causes them to then manifest bad things to others, that right there is very concerning. I mean, in its own right, but I think it's also concerning if it is coming from something that's more spiritual that we are just simply ignoring. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And to answer your question, I don't know. There are things that, we know that childhood affects behavior. We know that relationship affects behavior, emotions affect behavior. What we watch on TV or consume affects behavior. People will go and say karma. People will go and say past life. People will say generational, that we're continuing of our DNA. There are many theories for that. To tell you if it's what is one thing, I'm not really sure. It doesn't change. I don't have to know that in order to help a person. Like, I don't need to know the problem necessarily, and I've done it few times that I work with people about problems that I personally don't know what the problem is. They know what the problem.
What does that look like?
What does it look like? In traditional therapy, we're usually thinking, all right, let's talk about something that happened, and we will explain that thing. And this is for me as a hypnotist, is like I need that I need my clients to have their own connection. Like, I don't really need to know what happened there. For example, I work with sexual assault. Like, I want to have those things in my mind. So my clients think about that. I don't need to know the details of what bad things happen. I help them to disassociate from them and to create a belief, a story, a narrative that is going to serve them in life. So
Hmm.
that's, in a way, some people will say that's the difference between therapy and between coaching. That coaching, we focus more about outcome.
Yep.
And I like to make peace with the past. I like to work with the body. I like to release that stuck energy from the body. With that, what's really important is how the person wants to experience his own life.
That's fascinating because we do see this quite a bit where there is a mentality that we need to sit and we need to talk about all of our problems. This mentality really became the norm, I would say, in the 2000s, really the 2010s. And this became kind of like the trust the experts, the trust the science mentality of we need to, uncover all these past pains, talk through these past injustices, and really open up these past wounds.
Yeah,
And I always felt it was like it was self-destructive. I felt we were going backwards when we were doing that. I thought that the progress, to your point, that we had made as a society, especially even just along racial lines, for example, back in the 90s, we were as a society at the highest race relations that we had been in recorded American history. And then as soon as you start to do this, the almost therapy-like mentality of starting to try to go back and start uncovering all the past injustices of the past and to make them the injustices of today, right? And to make people upset about them,
yeah,
that turned into more negative outcomes. And we saw that manifest really in the quote unquote summer of love in 2020 when we saw billions of dollars of damage due to the protests that happened around America during that summer, the first summer of COVID. So I say all that what you're talking about is on the micro, but we see it manifest in the macro. And that is fascinating when you really you zoom out versus just kind of and I see this a lot. I'm curious, Matan, your perspective. There are a lot of folks I connect with that just kind of seem like they're on autopilot, right? They don't
yes,
really seem like they have a sense of direction, a sense of purpose. They just kind of are. They don't
yeah,
ask questions. They don't have any critical thinking or curiosity. And I would assume, or I would dare to venture, that for those types of people, there might be, to your point, like you don't need to know their trauma. They might have trauma that they themselves don't even recognize as trauma, but is something that is keeping them either held back in that autopilot state. What's been your mentality, or not necessarily mentality? I apologize. What's been your perspective in dealing with folks who have that mentality? Because I saw you smile when I mentioned that, so
yeah,
I'm assuming you've interacted with some folks who
yeah.
kind of match that representation.
Yeah, so first I'll go back. There is something nice about opening what happened in the past. Obviously we have to take it with a perspective because our memory is not real. Like, there is that research that our memory is, I don't know, anywhere between 20 to 40% real. It's really based on how we're repeating our own stories. The issue, with opening up, like going to therapy every week and talking about your problems is like basically you spend an hour, 2 hours a week. You spend money every week on that, and basically what you're doing, you can easily create your identity as a person with trauma.
Mhm.
And then after an hour like that, you go to the world and you experience the world from that perspective that you are a person of lack or something is wrong with you.
And it becomes your not just that there's something wrong with you, that then becomes the reason why I think a lot of people embrace this woe is me mentality, right? Where they will almost they want to be unhappy. And I know that sounds a
Yeah.
little counterintuitive, but that's the vibe, right? They kind of get off on being the victim, on being unhappy based on the circumstances that either they themselves have created or at the very least they have enabled.
Yes, and in a way, for a person who's been unhappy for a while, it's not familiar to go and to be happy. And this is, I think, the biggest thing with every kind of change is if it's letting go of anxiety, if it's letting go of weight, if it's letting go of resentment, it's not familiar to our unconscious mind. So I work with so many people that they see that they need to do whatever it is. They need to
Mhm.
go to the gym. They need to start eating healthy food. They need to stop consuming not healthy food. but their unconscious mind is it's not familiar for them to live this life, because all of a sudden you can hang out with your friends because your friends are problematic for you. So a lot of time it's like unfamiliar for us. And one of the techniques that we do in hypnotherapy is what's called future pacing. Is like taking that feeling of feeling good and just feel good about it instead of rejecting it. Because for a person who is depressed for 3 years, he doesn't know what it's to think like a positive person, to have agency to make a change. Because that's what you're talking about. It sounds to me like the
Mhm.
second part of what you said is like you as a person, you're a person who you have that skill in yoga. We call it discernment. Like you're like think on both feet and don't take things the way they are. Don't follow the narrative. And the question is like why we follow the narrative.
Mhm.
This is what we learn in kids. Like we go to school that they don't really teach us to think. They teach us to follow instructions, and we get
Yeah.
reward for following, not getting reward for being creative and expressing ourselves.
And I think right there, that is the answer, right? Why so many folks are on autopilot because they were never in a situation as formulating young people to have that critical thinking skill, to think outside the box, to ask those questions. As a matter of fact, I think anyone listening to the show today, they all either feel that this is them or they know of someone in that class when they were in school who would ask the why question. Why is it like this? Well, okay, why? And the teacher just getting frustrated and being like, no, we're moving on. But that curiosity, if that curiosity is killed in the classroom, then of
Mm,
course it's going to be killed as you become an adult because it was not only something that you as a skill will lose, but you were actually punished. You were embarrassed. You were told to be quiet. You were called out in the report cards to your parents saying is disruptive in class, right? Like, no, I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand how this stuff works. And I was always, I mean, I was a good student and I was always on the good graces of 80% of the teachers. But there, for the 20%, they were like, Nichols, please stop asking questions. Like, please shut up. Like those kind of things, because they didn't want to do that extra part. They just kind of wanted to go through the motions themselves. They just wanted to say, this is what I got to teach you. I'm going to teach it to you and then I'm done. That's what I get paid to do. I don't get paid to answer your questions, kid. You get paid to take my tests and listen to me talk. So I say all that, like, going back to the micro, when you're working with patients or clients, what are some of the most common things that you're hearing from folks when they say, Matan, I need help with X? What is X and how do you usually go about, like, what does a session look like? How does an engagement with you look like from beginning to end? Is it once, twice meeting you? Is it
eh,
weekly connections? What does that look like? So yeah, the two questions. What are the main issues that you help address? And then what does that actual process look like?
The process usually takes like anywhere between 2 to 6 sessions. That's what I do with most of my clients in terms of hypnotherapy. They might be longer sessions, like 2 hours. It's not like we're really getting deep. So the first thing that we get is we get to the problem, because the problem that we saying most of the time, the problem that we think we're having and the problem that we're having are two separate things. So when a person say whatever X is my problem, it's usually not really X. Okay.
So for example,
For example, when people say I'm afraid of failure, they're not afraid to fail. They're afraid of the feeling of failure. Okay.
so it's not
And
it's not so to make sure I'm hearing you right. So it's not a matter of I'm genuinely afraid that I'm gonna go stand up in front of my coworkers and I'm gonna just bomb. It's the I'm feeling afraid of that outcome and I'm focusing entirely on that versus the actual act itself. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, your mind is basically not focusing on that, it's focusing on not that. Okay, so it's
Right.
usually, you took something that it's one or two questions away from the problem. It's usually something different. So like if it's let's say standing in front of people or expressing yourself, I need to ask like usually 5 questions before we get to what's the problem. So I'm not making an assumption. I'm asking questions and I'm reading facial expression and micro expression and body language, and I'm listening
Mhm.
to the tone until what the real issue is. Okay. So if, for example, it's any form of fear or anxiety, anxiety usually sits on something. Okay. It sits on usually on something that happens in the past, and the way we dealt with that is repressing that emotion, suppressing that emotion, and that's on a mental, on an unconscious level, and also on a physiological level. On a physiological level, we are basically stopping the flow of energy. So our body, our nervous system. That's why movement is so important. That's why exercise is so important. It's like the sewer system of our body, of our emotions. So it's great to have healthy digestion, but if it's stuck, if we're holding it, then that creates long-term problems. Because we all experience fear, anxiety on in a mild basis, on a regular basis.
Mhm.
The question is what we're doing with these feelings.
And what are some of the things that you help people do with those feelings?
Um, it depends, but usually the first thing that we work is like let it move through. Releasing the cycle. Let the cycle complete. Because, for example, with fear, it gets stuck in the body for many people, and then it gets translated into anger. Because it depends on the person, but I'm just giving you an example that might fit some people. Anger is a way that a lot of people know how to handle fear, so they create that anger
Mhm.
around it, and that stops the energy. But that creates another problem, obviously, because it's okay to feel fear, and when we're allowing our nervous system to feel fear and to release it, it gets released, and then we go back into regulation.
So you're saying a lot of releasing and containing energies of emotions, and I want to better understand what
Not
that.
containing, let them through. Energy is
No,
meant
no,
to
I
flow.
understand, I understand. I'm saying, but you're using these examples of, like, letting energy flow, letting the energy, like, why you're letting it flow, because otherwise it's repressed, right? It's being
Yeah,
held inside. But what does the manifestation of letting energy flow look like? Because people will hear that, and the skeptic will say, "Okay, yeah, let the voodoo magic flow, like, let the vibes roll. Okay, Matan." Like, that sounds good,
yeah.
but in practice, what does that look like to help really ground what releasing the energy would actually look like?
It gives them basically freedom from the behavior that was bothering them.
But how? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so
Yeah,
you're a skeptic's gonna hear this and they're gonna say, "Okay, great. Get rid of the bad feeling." Boom, bad feeling's gone, right?
it's not
Like,
get
they're
rid.
gonna
It's
say it
moved
again?
through. It's not getting rid. It's moved through. It's
Okay.
like
But
they
but
think
do you see
about
my
it.
point, though? They're gonna reject the idea of letting it move through. They're gonna say, "Okay, great. Bad idea." I'm trying to play the role of skeptic
Yeah,
because I wanna be able to effectively address the objections that folks in the audience who maybe are skeptical are gonna be asking. So if
yeah,
they're asking these questions, I wanna give you the opportunity, like, just help them see, like, I'm not saying, it's magic voodoo. I'm saying this is when I say let energy flow through.
yeah,
This is what it actually means. This is what in practice that looks like. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it means
Okay.
that you let go, because basically what you're saying, the energy of skeptic, and yeah, I think it's very healthy to be skeptic of certain, all the not all the time, but at certain situation, to question, not to believe to everything that you hear. I think that's a very healthy skill. So for me, with people, like a lot of time with what the behavior described is that the energy is stuck in the mind. The energy is described in thinking. You see my point? And
Is
what
it energy then, or is it just your own thoughts?
your own thoughts, but thoughts are energy.
Tell us more about that.
Think about, I don't know, think about, probably in few hours you're gonna stop working and you're going to be sitting with your wife and your daughter, right?
Mhm.
Do you feel the difference in your body already?
If I was there, yeah, 100%.
So you're less head, like you kind of, you release that mechanism of the head, that, like, right now we're not in a situation necessarily of relaxing all the way down completely. So with that issue, that it's like, the, the person needs, like, when I work with a person, he wants to change. Okay, like, I can't help people who don't know, who don't
Right.
want how to change. And most of the people, by the way, they don't want to change. They're saying that they want to change. They're saying that they don't want to feel anxious. They're saying that they want to lose that weight. They say that they want to be in a good shape so they can live and play with their grandkids on the ground and be healthy and eat healthy food. So this is a fundamental question that I ask people, like, do you want to change, and why now? Because many people who go with whatever issue they go, and they go with it for years.
Mhm.
It's a
Oh,
problem
by the
for,
way, that's a
yeah.
sales question I asked too, by the way. Why are we having this conversation today? Why are we having this conversation now, right? Not, "Why didn't you have this conversation 6 months ago?" And, "Why aren't you having it 6 months later? Why is
Yeah,
it today?"
because
Yeah, that's interesting.
what you basically saying is, it's like, we have a mind that is a master in avoiding what's important for us on a regular basis. So for a
Mhm.
person, the easiest way to talk about weight, it's a problem that they see it every day. They've been ignoring it for 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years. Yes. And what this question that you ask, like, why do you want to change, and why now? What's going to make it? It's like, we need to be upfront that all society that we live, that, I'm going to just ask nice question my clients, and not tapping a little bit about the pain. you know Without that, we can't really move forward, and it depends on the person. It's like, it depend, everybody I have to work with differently. Most of my clients, they're not going there. I don't need to use pain so much, and I don't like to use pain so much. I like to help people who really want to change, to make that change, and they usually tried many years of therapy and plant medicine and all of these modern ways that there is, and then they get to me, and we're letting go of it. Uh, so I think you completely right. It's like, the person needs to want himself change. Without that, nothing is going to happen. And we're getting so many unconscious positive things from not changing. Okay, they're not positive. All right, but you have to remember, the goal of our mind is to keep ourselves safe, not to keep
Yep.
us happy. And being depressed, being anxious, it's familiar to people. It's like,
Matan Matan Cohen-Citron, this has been a great conversation. I'm fascinated by this kind of stuff. So what I wanna do is leave the audience with your final thoughts, for today's episode. So obviously bring us home with a nice neat bow. But before I turn things over to you, I just wanna emphasize again the parallels between what you're outlining here, what we talk about in the world of sales, but also we talk about a lot of the corollaries between the world of sales and the world of politics, right? And what you're articulating is exactly the same type of approach when I'm teaching a salesperson how to go through and engage in a discovery process, right? Uncovering those questions, understanding the pain and understanding the motivations behind why we are or aren't solving something, right? Like, these are the questions that elicit more than just why we would make a decision today, but it helps us understand what decisions we did make or did not make in the past. So I'm just fascinated by what you're seeing in the world of hypnotherapy and how it does have this parallel to the world of politics and sales. But with that, all that being said, Baton, yes, bring us home. What are your final thoughts for today? And of course, for folks who are curious and they want to learn more, where can they go ahead and reach out to you?
they can reach my website, movement. So matansmovement.com, or they can find me on Instagram. Uh, in terms of thoughts, change is possible and change happens in the moment. Now we have the ability to change right now. You have the power in you to change. We all have the power to do whatever we want to do with our life. Whatever idea that we have, we can bring it into life. And I think you don't have to start big, because the first thing, as a joke, I say to people, I'm saying as a joke, they say to me, I cannot have a new habit. I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, uh, and I'm saying to them, can you start eating your boogers? And they're looking with the same face that you're looking at me. It's like, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, you see, you already made a choice not to do that thing. Okay. Because it's a different set of values that move them. But we are able to do anything, whatever it is. Then most thing people say, fix your bed. If it gives you happiness, fix your bed, clean the kitchen, eat healthier, do one thing, get the sense that you're a person that can change, and that will lead you to do many different things. And, like for people who work by themselves, like one of the most important thing, I work with a lot with entrepreneurs as well, is like to know how to manage yourself. And it takes time and it takes energy to
Yep.
do, because it's easy to do a meeting with your team or with your employees, but to do a meeting with yourself about what's important for you in your life and how you're going to achieve it, that's a little bit harder to do. And however, that's amazing because it takes everything from all the overload that we have, all of these things that we want to do. I bring them to pen and paper or to an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, and planning how I'm going to achieve it. And that's going to give people the sense that that they have agency in life. And I think now with where we are with media, with social media, is that people wake up and they're victims.
Yep.
They're not saying like, this is my life, I get to live another day. And I think that's what life is about. Like you have dreams, you have positive responsibilities, like my family and my girls that I want. I want to give them these experiences, to have vacations, to have education, to have conversation, to go and see art, science, to really use their mind. This is what moves me. So the question for a person is like, what moves you? Like I always look at values and this is also a good place to start, as the DNA of a person. For some people, it's to leave legacy. For some people, it's to feel kindness. For some people, it's nature. For some people, it's creating change in the world. So it's not, I did not give you one thing.
No, Matan, it's been a great conversation, and I frankly feel that this is one of those conversations that we're gonna have to have more of, especially as things just keep being weird in our world. There's a lot of just chaos, confusion. I feel like I'm reading my daughter's Llama Llama book, Chaos. What is it? Chaos, Llama, and Distress. Mama, mess, mess, mess. Something, it doesn't matter. Any parent out there is like, oh yes, Llama Llama, yes, Llama Llama.
We have to learn how
Anyways,
to function in chaos. That's the reality. Chaos,
yes,
life is chaos.
it is chaos, and any adult that has a kid who has a job, who has responsibilities, they know that because you're trying to juggle all these things. It does feel chaotic, but at the same point in time, to know that there are blueprints and there are folks like you out there who can help see, the clarity through the chaos. That's at the very least, that's warm and fuzzies because now you don't have to do it yourself. So we're gonna go ahead and put a pin in today's conversation. With that being said, if folks you enjoyed today's conversation with Matan, please do me a favor. Go ahead and give it a share when you do tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. You can find me on X, on Facebook, and on Instagram. As for the Brian Nichols Show, you can find us over on your favorite podcast platforms or your favorite video platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, X. We are uploading the Brian Nichols Show all over the place. So wherever it is you consume your content, just hit that subscribe button. And of course, hit that little notification bell because we have 3 brand new episodes air every Monday Thursday and Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, and they will live stream over on Facebook, on X, on YouTube, and on Rumble. So again, hit that little subscribe button, because I guarantee every episode of The Brian Nichols Show will leave you at least one of three things: educated, enlightened, and informed. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and shut up and let Matan take us home. Matan, any final words or thoughts before we say goodbye today?
Enjoy your life. You have one life. Enjoy them.
Hear, hear. Amen. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye then. So that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on The Brian Nichols Show for Matan Cohen-Citron. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.